Oops, sorry about that. We'll start with the roll call. I'm here. Stephanie, Gretchen, Ellen, Randy B.
Here.
Bonnie,
Present.
Mary,
Here.
Gina,
Present.
Claudia,
Present.
and Genesis.
Here.
Hi.
Hi.
So,
Hello.
what?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're welcome. So we have, where's in attendance? Okay. This is not my current agenda. This is the minutes from the last meeting. I've got it here. Got it here. Thank you. I wondered why it was already notated who was at the meeting. I'm like, oh, are we clairvoyant? Okay. All right, so is there anything to be brought out for last minute needed change to the agenda? I have nothing. Hillary? Nothing? If not, we would entertain a motion on the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor to approve?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and we
Who were
have
those-
the
Who were
minutes.
those motions by? I'm sorry. They were very quiet. So moved was,
Oh, so moved, Claudia. I didn't have my mic down, sorry.
no, you're good. Second was Mary. Okay. Sorry.
That's fine. All right, so we have the minutes in front of us from the last meeting. If there's nothing, no corrections needed to be brought out, we will entertain a motion to approve the November 9th regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
I second that.
Second by Claudia. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now, do we have, the chair and vice chair elections in January. Well, I just want to remind everybody, this is your annual end of the year reminder that we do take nominations and voting for executive positions within the, like the chair and the vice chair and in January. So be thinking about that, and we'll just do that at our regular meeting. And now, the 2018 Concerts on Broadway dates and bands. Mary Jensen, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have recently met with Kara from Wine Glass Arts, and she has been actively and busily preparing our dates and bands for next season. And she has 3 of the 4 dates determined. And so it's up to us to go ahead and vote on the bands and the dates so that they can be approved so that she can start them into contract negotiations. So the thing that Kara and Wineglass have been focused on is trying to keep the dates the same every year so that it becomes more consistent for people to be able to find every single year. And she's done a really good job with that this year, I think. And also, when we started Concerts on Broadway, it started in June and it rained every year, and our June concert was always just a little wonky. So she's moved the season to start a little bit later in July, and I think that that's a really good choice on our part as well. So the concerts are as follows. Well, let me tell you the dates first. The dates are as follows: July 14th, July 28th, August 11th, and August 25th. So if you see that in calendar form, that really is just every other Saturday between the 14th and the 25th, the 14th of July and the 25th of August, which is excellent. She has scheduled the following. July 28th, she has scheduled High Street. August 11th, she has scheduled Soul Patch. Both of them have played here before. August 25th, she has scheduled Jeffrey Castle and Celtic Night, which they were here for the very first time this previous season and became an instant hit, so we were really excited that they wanted to come back. She is still negotiating for the July 14th concert date, But at this point, it would be a new band to our venue, and she's hoping to have Avenue B join us. So with that, we do need a motion to approve the dates and the 3 that she has scheduled so far.
Any questions for Mary? If not, we would entertain a motion to approve the 3 bands and the 4 dates, correct?
Correct.
3, say that again?
So let me go ahead and I'll make that a little clearer. The 4 dates that we need to approve are July 14th, July 28th, August 11th, and August 25th. And the 3 bands that we need to approve at this point are High Street, Soul Patch, and Jeffrey Castle and Celtic Night.
So I make a motion to approve the 4 dates and the 3 bands for Concerts on Broadway 2018.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Excellent. Thank
Thank you, Mary.
And probably next month we'll be able to approve the final band.
All right, so we have the meeting structure discussion. This, I'm going to let Hillary help me quite a bit with this. We had a meeting with the mayor. It was our regular agenda-setting meeting with the mayor, and we talked about, oh, and by the way, I'm handing these cards around. These are cards that the commission has received. So Hillary brought them up. We can just enjoy those, pass them on down. So we've just been trying to streamline, to maximize people's volunteer hours and focus the meetings to make it so that it's not so difficult to meet outside of the meetings, and so that we really highly utilize the regular meetings and become more efficient with our information sharing. We talked about it last month, about having breakout sessions for the committees. But the mayor had some really interesting input on what the committee should be. And Hillary, could you share with us that structure?
Yeah, I'll share with you the structure of the 3 discussed committees. It was a planning committee, which would be, it would have the chair and vice chair on that committee, as well as an additional commissioner if desired. And that committee would be primarily focused on MAC strategic plan, the MAPS portion of your guys' planning as well, so that's the public art planning. Also, it would be focused on how the Meridian Arts Commission fits in with the city's more generalized strategic plan and comprehensive plan, and kind of be more conscientious of how the Arts Commission works within those other existing plans to make sure that we are moving the pin on things that you guys want to move forward and that you're being.
What's the name of that one again?
Planning.
We just call it the planning committee. Just not a fancy name for it. Another committee, or one of the other committees we discussed, was the Outreach and Education Committee. And they would be focused on not only how to get youth involved and our existing means of getting youth involved, which would be the working with the Meridian Symphony Orchestra young performers, West Ada young performers, possibly even working, or that would be the commission that would discuss some of the youth theater type of outreach that the Arts Commission does. But then also, as far as that outreach side, be much more focused on how is the Art Commission reaching out to the public in general? How are we promoting what we're doing, and what does that look like, and what are the best means to provide public outreach, and what kinds of information do we need to provide for them to understand what you're working on and what you're doing, and also what your partners are working on and what they're doing. The third committee we discussed was an events-focused committee. So that would primarily be the Dairy Days Art Show and Meridian Art Week. There are lots of things that MAC does that don't necessarily fit into one of these committees, but those are more generalized things anyway. For example, Initial Point Gallery wouldn't be necessarily fit super well in any one of those committees, but it is also more of a generalized discussion that does depend on you guys as a group with a quorum making those Initial Point Gallery selections, and you guys as individual commissioners signing up to to attend receptions and that kind of thing. So not everything that you do would need to be addressed in a committee meeting, but those committee meetings are intended to help give needed focus to some areas that might be helpful for MAC to focus on. The conversation surrounding that discussion evolved a little bit. The Parks Commission last night discussed not continuing their committee meetings in the same format that they've done, that we were just looking to model, because they no longer are using it in the same fashion that you guys would use it. It became very much like just staff reporting to individual committees rather than discussions between those committees and planning within those committees for specific subjects. That being said, it's still an option that you guys could consider, whether that is part of your regularly scheduled meeting, where you're scheduled to be here at 3:30, you would basically call the meeting to order, then you would go to committee meetings, then you would come back and adopt the agenda and address committee business and other agenda items. So you wouldn't be conducting any business prior to returning from your committee meetings. You could also meet prior to your regularly scheduled meeting. So say only 2 committees wanted to meet, say you wanted to meet at 2 on the second Thursday of the month, those 2 committees could meet before your regularly scheduled meeting and effectively do the same thing without adjourning as a whole if there are scheduling issues. Or you could, another option would be that you have those same committees, those same 3 committees, but you do regularly monthly scheduled meetings. That would be one option that would allow there to be any overlap if there's interest in overlap. So the mayor's suggestion was that the chair and vice chair be on that planning committee, but if the chair and vice chair were interested in informing or being involved with the outreach committee, they're limited in doing that if you have it at your regularly conducted time, because you can't be in 2 places at once. So if you had reoccurring monthly meetings, that would give you a little more predictability in your schedules, but more flexibility if you're interested in serving in multiple capacities. And then your fourth option, as I see it, is that you could continue to schedule meetings as needed and able, and doing those doodle polls and getting people together, not always on the most consistent basis, but in a time that works out for the majority of people involved in the committee.
Okay, thank you, Hillary. That's a very fair assessment. I think it's a very, we're just trying to look for ways to more efficiently utilize our time, streamline the process, and sometimes if you meet early in the month and then, a couple of weeks go by, it's hard to bring, the information just isn't as fresh as it was if we could get it more contiguous. And for my schedule, I know that just personally, it's always easier for me if I have something regularly on the books, and then if I need to change it, because I have something that's just a conflict that's unavoidable, then change it at that time, as opposed to the other way of coming around where you're constantly trying to make your schedule and find ways to articulate different busy schedules together. If everybody knows that this time is put aside for this committee meeting, then within that committee, if they need to change, they can make the change, but you kind of set the time aside. Does that make sense? Just like we are for this meeting. How do you guys feel about the other options with the idea of the 4 options that Hillary said? The first being that we would come at this time, break out into our committee meetings, and then come back. That's the way to keep the information the very freshest, but at the same time, the other side of that would be that if there's something that you need a little time to think on, you're the meeting's right then, So, I don't know, there's maybe some options where we have a couple of things available. I would like to be able to be present for both the outreach and ed and the planning as often as I could. Planning first, but I just think that would make it easier for me to keep everything in my head. So I'm wondering if maybe we have one, either the planning or the outreach and ed outside on a regularly, like a week before the meeting, at a regular time, and then do the other two as breakouts. What do you guys think of that hybrid idea? And I'm just putting stuff out there. Everybody chime in, because we need this to work for everyone.
So what did you just say? So the planning would be a week ahead, and then outreach and events would be as a breakout of our regular monthly meetings?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of doing two meetings with one visit to City Hall. How long does that make? I mean, we deal with different things than the Parks and Rec did. Did they meet from like is it a 3-hour block, or does it add a half an hour of time? What time are we talking about? Because that is a concern, clearing your calendar for that much time.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the Parks Commission committee meetings are 1 hour, and they're very strict about returning at 6:30. It starts at 5:30. Excuse me, they have announcements and roll call, kick off their meeting, then they break out. And if it's 45 minutes left in that hour, then that's what they take. Or if it's 55, they take a little bit longer. But they're pretty religious about starting the regular meeting back up at 6:30.
I don't think we
You can do it differently.
Yeah, and I think another thing it does is it kind of brings time more into focus, for those very reasons. I don't know that we'd need an hour for those
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
breakouts. Yeah. Thinking. Because even when we've discussed, I mean, the longest meeting that I think we've ever had was on one of the ones where we're looking at the art. And I was kind of new to the commission at the time, but we've never historically, I don't think, Mary, give me some help, an hour and a half has been probably a long meeting for us, except for that one that went on for a long time, but we had a huge decision to make that night. So I would think a half an hour for our breakouts would be a starting point. Guys?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mary.
I just have a couple of questions to maybe help think through this. I do like the idea, I think, of kind of streamlining from lots of different liaison positions down to maybe just 2 committees and help focus where your focus needs to be. My question is, then there are 8 of us currently serving, right? 9 of us. Are there 9? So if we break up into 2 committees, assuming that not everybody will want to serve on both of them, because then we would just be a giant commission again, right?
Yeah.
That would maybe put 4 people on each committee, or because you would have some overlap, maybe 5 or maybe 3. And then when someone's missing, would a committee meeting function with 2 people is what I want to know. I think it could. I think that's just something to think about.
Yeah, those are good points. And, I don't see this actually as a replacement for the liaisons. I still love the liaison positions because it gives, this would replace, because we were talking about doing breakout sessions for the liaisons of those committees. I think the liaisons are valuable because it still gives one, like you just gave your report for what they were talking about with the Parks and Rec. I was thinking about this when you were talking with the Parks and Rec. What they've ended up doing is abolishing the committees because they've gotten to a situation where they're just making reports. The committees would be working committees for the umbrella approach to the events, but they may from time to time want to invite a report from the liaison for instance, events. We're doing a breakout on events, and it's the month before we're rocking and rolling on Concerts on Broadway. So we may ask for that breakout session for Mary to give a report in the breakout to the events, and then give, there would be the events group would be more aware when you're giving the report, so that it's not just the one person. So that would enter the subcommittees as well. So Gretchen, also under, let's put it to outreach, since TVCC is Gretchen's liaison position right now to the General Commission. If there was ever a question or some special thing that we wanted some more information, then the outreach group, education outreach group, would invite Gretchen, if she doesn't already sit on the committee, to give a liaison some insight to the subcommittee. And so the liaisons would be the bottom layer of information, and they would feed up into the larger groups, which would be meeting in subcommittee, and then streamline. And I just think also that means that you have a point person for each broken-out event, and then you've got the subcommittees that are working more of the details. And then it makes it much, much easier for us to be fully informed and make good decisions when we're back in session and taking action on items. Does that make sense to everyone?
Madam Chair, yes,
Mary.
I totally agree. And I think the biggest positive I can see on this committee meeting, and I just have one question. I think, Hillary, maybe you said this already, but do committee meetings go on the record?
So committee meetings are still, they're still noticed. And they're still public meetings. So minutes are still taken for them and still included in your record.
Okay. Just wondering. Thanks.
Yeah.
So I think that the other thing that really helps, that's something I think we're lacking at this point, is just being able to have some open discussion. It's so difficult to do in this format, right? Because I barely can see Claudia down there, And even though we're having a good discussion now, it's very different than what we normally are able to do. So for that reason alone, I do like the idea of having some breakout committee meetings where those discussions can really happen as needed and not feel quite as formal as in here.
Yeah. I agree. I just think it'll add a step in between the reports that we have coming from the liaisons. It'll make us more of a working board, where we roll up our sleeves and we really become semi-experts at our liaison positions, and then the committees have much better information to work with. Bring that information, it's refined again to the full committee, and I think it'll be easier for us to feel connected to the work, as well as streamline our time and our efficiency so that we don't overload people's schedules. Does that make sense? And I had another thought, but it's gone now. So more, yes, Emily.
Madam Chair, I wanted to circle back to one thing, which was you need to have at least 3 committees if this is how you're going to do it, because to have 5 commissioners on a committee is accidentally the entire commission. It's a quorum.
Yeah,
So you need
we
to
can't
make sure
quorum
you
the
don't
committees.
have 5 commissioners. 4 or fewer is the limit before you now have to notice another commission meeting.
Because we
Or
can't have a
you're-
quorum in the committees.
Right.
So
Or
we need
you're
4 or
accidentally
less.
doing a commission meeting while the committee meetings are happening. So
Yeah.
it's a mess. Yeah, you're inside, commission meeting inside a commission meeting.
Yes.
Please
Like a play inside a play. We don't want that. All right, any comments? Any input? I mean, does this sound like something that would be helpful, all of you? Or does it just sound horrible and you just want to walk away? Gina, do you have any? Seems like you're thinking.
I am. It's just one of those days that I am having a hard time forming my words.
I have those.
I feel like it's a good idea to have the meetings, the committee meetings, because we meaning anybody that has at least 3 meetings a month for anything, you get bogged down in going to meeting after meeting after meeting. And so I think being cognizant of everyone's time and having them, within our MAC commission, or the commissioners meeting monthly, or even prior to
Okay?
our regularly scheduled meeting, like at 2 o'clock or 2:30. I like that idea. So
Okay.
I'm on board.
Thank you, Gina. And she brings up one of the options that we hadn't discussed yet, the option of having people come. I know this would be difficult for Gretchen and Ellen because they clear the time right up to come to 3:30. So we'd have to maybe send an email out discussing that further. But how would, and Randy B., I don't know if you could make it any earlier than, could you make a 2 o'clock
Yeah.
or 2:30?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a question. So is it
Yes, Randy B.
is it like is it during the subcommittees? Is it like
Mm-hmm.
during this time, or are we going to stretch the time out and have?
That's, we were just
Or-
discussing whether or not we would have it start at the same time, or whether or not it might be easier for some people if we started, say, at 2:30 or even 2:45 with committees, and then came in and started the public meeting at 3:30. It literally would just depend on schedules. And let's just go ahead and go, do you mind if we go down the line and say which would be easier? Yes, Claudia?
Madam, may I ask a question first? What would be the other option besides coming early if we did committees after our general session? Because City Hall's still open. I know we have to clear the room for council, don't we?
We do, but what I like about having it before is because that way the information that's gathered and looked at in the committees is kind of contiguous to when we discuss it in the
Yeah,
meeting.
that's true,
So that
yeah.
you just don't have to be digging back and, because I know that our lives are full. It's not just commission meeting and then we go to sleep and then a commission meeting.
Yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
yeah. So before or during, I think would be more efficient to streamline that part of it. Could you make it, say, at 2:30?
Mm-hmm.
Gina, would that be doable? I could make it work.
I can make that work.
I could make it.
Mary? So, Hillary, would you mind, just for the sake of clarifying the discussion, because we don't have Gretchen and Ellen here, would you, because I think they might be the most,
Or
that might be the
Stephanie.
most
Or
problematic.
Stephanie.
Or Stephanie,
Yeah,
yes.
three.
Those three, it might be the most problematic for them backing the meeting time up for subcommittees. Would you mind generating an email giving both the scenarios of if we decide to go forward with this plan, of asking, everyone here would be fine either way, we could back it up a little, but ask the three absent commissioners if, which of those timeframes would work best for them if we decide to go forward with this breakout plan?
And the options that you're proposing are 2:30 or 3:30, correct? Just to add, I know, Claudia, you mentioned it, so you guys normally, the meeting that follows you normally is the Historic Preservation Commission.
Right.
They actually have changed their meeting date and time, starting in January, so you'll no longer face that. But I
that's
know that
nice.
there was some concern with commissioners that you still want it to be a very effective and straightforward meeting, so you still don't want your meeting to be too long.
Right.
But you won't have those people like waiting in the audience, like twiddling their thumbs, staring at you after this meeting. So just wanted to let you know.
That's nice. For every once in a while when we've gone, hopefully they didn't change their meeting because of us.
Leslie, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mary?
I think, just thinking ahead, and if there is an issue with getting the rest of the commissioners on board for an early schedule, would another option be placing all of those committee meetings within our timeframe? What that eliminates is the chairperson being able to attend all of them, but maybe since there is a question of not having a quorum in those committees, if the chair could rotate through them and be the one that needs to help even the numbers, that might be a way to get, it wouldn't get
Yeah.
all of them done every time, but at least you would get a better sense of all three of the committees.
That's an option, too.
If
an
it has to
option
fit
too, and I-
into the window that we already currently have.
Right, right.
So I have a
That's an
question.
option.
So
Yes.
if we're gonna,
Claudia.
if we're gonna try it and we're gonna meet for a half an hour, could we come at 3? And have the committee from 3 to 3:30, and then,
Sure.
and then we start our regular meeting at 3:30 like we always have?
Sure.
Is that gonna work? I just was
Yeah,
wondering
3
why
would
we'd
be
be
good.
coming an hour early if we're only meeting for a half an hour in committee.
'Cause we don't want a full hour.
I just wanted snack time, but, no, 3 would work great.
I agree with the 3 o'clock.
Yeah,
I think that would be
It would be good.
yeah, 3.
a little easier.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's a positive discussion. We keep the liaisons, and of course, we can switch liaison positions. None of those are set in stone, and they're not part of our so if you're struggling, I think everyone's been doing well with their liaison positions. If you're wanting a switch, always let us know. But, so we go forward with the liaison point positions and then form these 3 committees. I think that we need to, we need to take formal action on this, don't we, as a board, to adopt it, or would this just be a?
Well, for one thing, I don't think you'd be able to start this until February, even if you did, if all the
Right.
stars aligned, because you still need to elect a chair and vice chair in February, or in January.
Right.
And that will determine who's on your planning committee.
Right.
So you could, if we need to make formal action, we could do that in January.
Yeah, and I don't think today's the day to do that anyway, because we have so many commissioners that are missing. I was just curious. Good, thank you. Thank you for all the work you've done on that, Hillary. And Mary, thank you for your input, because you've been with the commission the longest of any of us, and it's very helpful to have that historical perspective. I think unless there's anything further to bring out for discussion, we've made good strides, and good. All right. So moving on to the year in review, Hillary.
That goes to me. So I originally planned for this to be a lot longer, but since our meeting structure discussion went longer than planned, and that's partially from me giving you a lot of options, I wanted to just kind of go over from a really high level how you guys perceived this year. What things went well? What do you want and need to see in MAC as a board or as a commission? I didn't know if you guys wanted an opportunity to also analyze, strengths and weaknesses for the programming that you have in place, or if you just want to, maybe you don't want to go program by program, just talk about goals and I guess best practices that we could continue or things that we can improve going into the new year. It's a good time for reflection on 2017 before we move into 2018. Originally I wanted us to kind of talk about what we can improve, but what we did really well and kind of detail each of those programs, but we definitely don't have to detail each individual one. We can talk about MAC as a whole if you'd like. If you just want to say one really positive thing and one improvement, that would be fine too.
Well, I'll start out. I think we really, with our events, I think we're getting better and more focused with our events. Goddess of Broadway is growing. The Dairy Days Art Show has been a very, very well thought out. I think we've given the Dairy Days Art Show, Stephanie did such a great job with it this year. And we really gave it a thorough outing as to how well the commission is in place to be able to articulate with Dairy Days, and we have some decisions to make on that. But I think we can feel really good about what we've added to the Dairy Days Art Show, especially this year when we added some live entertainment as well as the art booths. And I think the Art Week is just going to get bigger and bigger. It seemed a lot more attended and focused this year than it was last year. And Art Drop is just fantastic. I think it's just going to keep getting bigger and start to define the downtown. That will grow. So I think our events, I think our organization and our focus is what we kind of need to make it easier for people to be a working board. And I think some of the things we're talking about today will be helpful in that way. So, and I think we've made strides in marketing as well. We've actually made some progress with the scripts in getting some marketing and getting art out there. So those are my highs and lows. Mary?
Sure. I feel like historical perspective is just a way to say old.
No, I've been on almost as long as you have.
Knowing some of these things. But when, a long time ago, when I started on this commission, we were working with a woman who was helping us kind of set things up and had a lot of arts organizational skills. And she would tell us, do you want to be an arts commission or do you want to be party planners? And we used that term, party planners, to kind of throw everything up against, because we didn't want to be party planners. That wasn't our job and it wasn't our passion at the time.
Plus, I don't know how to do it.
And so I think it's still a pretty good litmus test for as we look to the future and as we look at the past. And I think I have lots of positives, so I'm going to just start with my one negative. I think that we may have started, as much as I love all of our events, I'm not sure that they are all as useful as they originally started out to be. And there's feeling like they're extensive and we're kind of getting thinner to provide more events. And I think they're super successful, and we've had a great run on a lot of them, but I really would encourage us to kind of just look again really closely and see if every single event that we do really puts us closer to our strategic plan and the overall strategic plan of the city. And really, I don't think I want to pick on any one event, because, like I said, I feel like they've all been successful this year. But I would still continue to use that as like, okay, are we planning someone else's party sometimes? Or is this really what our passion is and really helps our mission? So that would be my only drawback. My successes, I mean, I think everything is success. I actually really loved doing the annual reports year after year because it feels really good to go back and see, oh my gosh, look at all these amazing things we've accomplished. And it's really great to get that buy-in from City Council too once they hear all of those things, because they see them, they approve them, but when you see it in a nice little packet and a presentation, it really does look impressive for a group of volunteers to be able to accomplish all of the things that we do in a year. My only suggestion is, and it's only just because it's right in front of me right now, is the Young Musicians and Young Artist Awards. I'd really like to see us get even more bang for our buck there and even add more bucks there, quite honestly. The Young Musicians program has kind of just been this program that we've had forever and ever and ever, and it's always been the same. But what comes out of it is amazing. I mean, those young musicians that MCO finds and puts on stage, and then sometimes we get to glean from for concerts on Broadway, are phenomenal. I really love that program, and I don't think that we get enough, not that we need the recognition, but I mean, I think we have extra dollars that we could find and allocate because these kids are so good. And I think there's also a way that we could get more bang for our buck in cross-promotion and advertising with the Meridian Symphony, in getting our name on a little bit more of what they do and saying, we absolutely believe in this program and we absolutely are supportive of our local symphony, and just making that a stronger connection than we currently have. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good suggestion. I would like to see one of the commissioners be part of the presentation of our award at the Young Artists Concert each year,
Oh, that would be nice.
because it would be, and have brought that up, and I'll revisit that. But, yeah.
There was a
Good,
time,
thank
Leslie, that
you.
used to let us sit in on the auditions, and we would be part of the selection committee. I don't know if that's appropriate, but I mean, it was more of a connection that we had back then, so.
I do that other places in the state. It's not here. It's funny. Great. You're awfully new, Randy B. Do you
Yeah.
have anything you want to say, or?
Yeah, I'm pretty new, so I don't know what happened before I came or the length of the year, but just being immersed in it all, I've learned a lot, so that's a positive for just getting immersed in it and gaining knowledge on like all the behind the scenes stuff, what you guys do, so that's really cool.
Thank you. And you've already given some very interesting input into the student art exhibit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got in right away, so thank you. We always love our student representatives, and that was such an interesting show that you're putting together, so
Thank you.
love it. Yeah, thank you. Bonnie?
Well, I don't really think I have a whole lot to add to it. I do think that what Mary brought up about the Young Musicians and Young Artist Awards is really good. I wish that I don't seem to see a lot about the Meridian Symphony. I mean, you kind of have to hunt to find when they're doing their events. And I think that's kind of sad because it is an amazing group.
Yeah, they're good.
Truly amazing.
I get email blasts, maybe. Do you get their email blasts?
I don't think so. But anyway, other than that, I think that the Art Week, the events that we do, I think are really fantastic. So I don't
And the
really have
gallery.
anything.
The gallery's had a really good year.
Yeah, the gallery was a lot of art.
If I may ask,
Claudia.
Bonnie, it seemed like in the past, we kind of spitballed a few ideas about how to make the gallery receptions more of an event with live music or do something to get more people there. What have you seen in other art communities that you've been involved with to make it more attended?
It's a mixed bag. You know, the last opening last week, I guess, there was live music, and it really was quite lovely. And the artists, it was the folks from the Gourd Society that are doing that have the 3D work upstairs. They had some members that had music and that played music, and it was really, really nice. And so I know I have asked several people, if you have friends or you can provide music, it's always a great thing to add to it. But I've not gone out and tried to find music.
Yeah, and maybe that's not our role. Maybe that's something we just add to when the artists are accepted for their show, that we add to this is how you do a show. And if you would like to provide music or invite musician friends, just make it part of the form.
In October, we did have demos one day each week, and I think that some of them were fairly well attended, some of them were pretty sparsely attended. And I don't know if that was really a great idea or not. I think it's education. Hillary, you might want to add to that.
Yeah, I think it was a great idea. I don't know how much the artists that came got in return for coming and painting there. There was a couple times, I can never pronounce his name, Kai Che, I don't know.
Shishanam.
Shishanam, I can't say it. Clearly, I'm not the best at articulating my words. But he was here when they were doing third grade tours. And so a lot of third graders that were on the City Hall tour got to stop, and he was teaching them about putting down a base layer first, telling him what he'd already done and where he was. It was a really great opportunity for those young learners, and some of them seemed super interested in what he was doing. When they were told they could look at the rest of the gallery, they just sat there and scooted closer to him, and were interested in that. But there's not, doesn't have the same foot traffic, so I don't know if it was of value to the artist. I thought it was something interesting to add, but maybe we just do that on like a reception night and ask artists to demo on their reception night.
That's a good idea.
I'd be asking a lot of that artist, or if they wanted.
Whether they
an
want to
option for
socialize,
them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, I always feel if you can educate one person, it's worth your time. You know,
Yeah, because they go out and talk about it
exactly.
to their friends. Thank you, Bonnie. Gina?
With this being my first year, I just want to say that I am completely impressed by the way the commission works and everything that you and we all do here, including the staff. But one of the things that I like that we work through, and Hillary did quite a bit of it, was the sponsorship packages and putting it together. And Mary touched on that. That's where you send that, you know, we send it out to potential sponsors, and they see everything that the commission does, not just one particular aspect of it. And I think it's very impressive. So I don't really have anything negative to say.
Oh. Hey. Claudia?
And, you know, I don't want to add too much, but I think it's interesting to kind of contrast the start of two different events that we do, because for Dairy Days Art Show, it was an existing event that we added art to, but for the Downtown the Art Week was something that we wholly created, but that event feels like it has the most development potential. And I'm like, there's so many great elements to it. How do we build a following? It's much easier if the event's already there, like Dairy Days. People are coming, and we've got this space. We've got one more reason for them to come. We have an art reason for them. And we also integrate music in the plays and all that kind of stuff. But there's still, I don't know what the answers are, but I would like to really, I love the idea of Art Week and all the things that are getting started, but it just seems like it's going a little slow. I don't know why, if I have the expectation that it's one big gathering of people, because it's not right now.
Right.
Can we have bigger, I mean, what else can we do? So I just think that one probably has the most potential.
Okay.
It's still, I mean, we're making progress, but we've only done it 2 years.
Yeah.
But I just think,
new.
I mean, I know it's back to school and it's busy, but in other ways, it's a great time of year to do it with the weather-wise, and people can come at the time of day that suits them best, depending. But I just would like to see us make a little more inroads with that one. And I don't know what the answers are, but I think we could really hang our hat on something that, you know, no other community's doing, and I'd love to see other communities come here for it. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, be a bigger draw. even.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Yes, of course, Gina.
I didn't want to get so involved with that, because I'm in total agreement with what you're saying. And Bonnie handed this to me, and they do this in Utah. And I'm looking through it going, okay, well, there's speakers, and there's demonstrations, and there's workshops, and there's plenary events, and there's every kind of entertainment that possible, and every kind of art.
Where's this?
From music to
It's Utah, right?
films, yeah.
Escalante?
And yes, this is on a much larger scale, but we can always dream to be this.
Yes.
And
love
you
the
know,
word
when
I love the word festival.
when you
Just
were
anything art.
when you were talking about the symphony, well, why couldn't we do something that
symphony
week
event.
with the symphony during Art Week? And I mean, just on and on and on and on and on. So, but that would be left for a committee meeting.
Yes.
That's why I
Great
go
for
into it.
education outreach community meeting. Yeah, this is fantastic. This is like I'm drooling. That's just inappropriate.
Yeah, and this is, you know, this is what is this, like.
That's
this is
the
their-
Escalante.
I don't remember what year it is, but this is not something that they just started, you know,
Yeah, no.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's grown.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's good to see where you go, where something like Art Week can germinate and become something larger over time. Even a summer music festival we've talked about a little bit before too. What I love that I'm hearing is that if people are thinking about events that we already have and thinking about how much they like them and that they want to continue and make them bigger. And now I think with what we discussed today, we may be able to bring some more focus into making some of those goals reality. And this brings me to another thing that I want to say, that will we do a strategic plan review in January? I think we should.
Yeah.
I think everything here indicates that we're kind of primed for it. So let's plan for that. Let me see, is there anything else that anyone would like to add to that? Or Hillary, any other questions that you have for us before we plan that final review?
No, I think that's a great discussion, and I think some of this stuff could be dug into a little more with that strategic plan, just making sure how some of your feedback, how our events fit into what's part of our strategic plans, what really needs to be developed versus what you maybe don't need to spend as much time on. So I think that we can just continue kind of talking about this in January, but this is it's good just to have feedback from you guys to know where you stand as a commission and where you see the most value for what the commission's doing for the city. So it's great to start. And I'll add that strategic plan review for January for discussion.
Excellent. And one more thing I'd just like to add quickly is I would love, one of the things that I think about a lot, actually, is making downtown Meridian a location. I really think about that a lot, and I think about that when concerts on Broadway are going on, because we've got something awesome going on, and when we have Art Week, I love it because it's downtown, right in that central core where we want to be developing, you know, make it a place to be that's not only an event but a beautiful place. And the murals, all of those things have to do with developing the art district. So. Genesis, you did not get to speak. Please.
Strengths. Well, yeah, you guys wear me out. You're so busy, and I love the energy and the art that you bring to the city of Meridian, both within City Hall and outside. Art Week it seems to be growing in the momentum. You know, those things, I know Claudia, you said it seemed kind of slow, and I kind of get that, but I think these things just take time. It takes a lot longer than we want it to take. I know myself, I put my mind to something and I want it to be done yesterday. And I think that it will continue to grow as long as the energy stays up there. You know, if you guys start pulling back, it's going to follow. You know, you keep pushing forward, and that's up to you. How you take that on. But I do think it's a great event, and the students certainly love the art chalk competition. I don't really necessarily see any weaknesses, other than just being careful not to spread yourselves too thin, so that you can keep. It's better to have a few really good events than a whole bunch of watered down. And so, you know, just amongst yourselves, I would say just be careful not to let yourself be spread too thin. But I'm just really impressed, and I don't know where you guys get your energy and.
Thank you.
So
And good advice. Good advice. Thank you, Genesis. All right, Hillary, thank you for leading that discussion. And I think the next time we visit this will be in January with our strategic plan review, with a little bit more focus with that information that we've gotten today. So old business, the annual report for City Council. This is kind of that dovetails right into what we've been talking about. We were getting input so that we can get that annual report done, and it's, everybody can look at that. It's a draft, and make sure that if you want any other topics added, that you get those into Hillary and I so that we can interpolate those into the report, and hopefully we'll have some pictures and a few, it'll be an artsy report as well as an informative report. So when is that, Hillary? Can you, it's,
So first of all, this draft is just the written report draft that goes to the clerk's office. So it's not your presentation isn't going to be this piece of paper for everybody. So don't worry, we'll add pictures and the like so that you have options.
yeah.
We had a pretty good presentation last year, so we can kind of build on that this year and add some more pictures that are current and go from there. Options for your guys' presentation date to City Council are January 9th, January 16th, January 23rd, February 6th, February 20th, February 27th, and March 6th. Those are all of the options. So Leslie, or the chair, is usually the one that presents that, but it really does reflect well on the commission if as many of you are in attendance as possible to help represent the commission as a whole. So I don't have, that I can get that date to CJ within the next couple weeks, but if you guys could tell Leslie when you could make it, then she could look at her schedule and send me over the best days that work for her, and then I can announce that either at your next meeting or send you an email if it's before your next meeting and say this is the date that was decided.
Okay, great. And it does. It really does look good if as many of us can be there, so that they see the faces behind the work and we get to see them. And it's just, yeah, it's better. And then if I mess up, somebody else can, say, out, move over. Claudia, you're a good presenter. So if you could, at the end of the meeting today, if you could just kind of give me an indication, and can we add that to the email that we're giving to the 3 people that aren't present? Can we add that so that they can choose a date as well? I'm going to tell you right now what date would work best for me, because I am going to be, yeah, we can talk about that afterwards. So, okay, thank you. So now the FY 2018 budget. We've thought about the way we've outlined the spending and ways that we could improve it. Does anybody have anything that's confusing or that they think could be more clear in the budget as you're looking at it right now?
So I want to be
Yes,
clear really
Hillary.
quickly. I took some liberty to make a few suggested changes, and this doesn't have to be permanent. But for example, last year you guys didn't have the art show and art week called out, but I suggested calling those out. If that is going to be a committee, it makes sense to kind of have a reporting number to say, okay, this is our annual budget. This is it just makes it easier for me to pull data from and report to at the end of the year, and also might make it easier for that event committee to understand what they're working with, rather than saying other expenses, which includes mailing and marketing and other promotions and other printing, and you don't know how much all of that other stuff might end up costing. So I just estimated that number. Your overall budget is $22,450. I also suggested that $2,000 towards art development because in the past you guys had talked about training and conferences, and I think that it might help to make that a priority if you set aside a budget for that. So whether that means that you need to do some additional research and planning to come up with what that budget number should be, we could look into that later or modify that later. But I did find a number of training options through Americans for the Arts that you could consider. So those training options range from $500 to multiple thousands of dollars, depending on what you want to do. But it is something that you've discussed before, and I think that it might help to prioritize that if it's called out in the budget. So those are the two biggest changes I made. The other change that I made, sorry, it's reported wrong. It says youth-focused. It's not supposed to say
Yeah,
that.
I was wondering.
It was just visual arts versus performing arts. So that visual arts actually includes some of the youth-focused components. And performing arts also includes youth-focused components. I think that was just a communication error on my part. But essentially, visual arts includes Inish Point Gallery and the West Ada Student Art Awards. So you usually budget $500 for Inish Point Gallery and $150 for the West Ada Student Art Awards. The performing arts category includes Concerts on Broadway and the Treasure Valley Children's Theater budget items, if that makes sense. And then also part of that other events budget, that is focused budget towards marketing for those events specifically. So you'll see in other expenses that it still says non-event specific marketing. So that would be for other ways that you're trying to reach out to the community or engage with a community that's not specific to an event. And I just thought that would help kind of quantify where those dollars are being spent, rather than saying X amount was spent on marketing, and then you say, well, how much was spent on Dairy Days? And
Yeah.
you can't really, hasn't been broken out that way. So that was my initial suggestion, but I wanted you guys to look at the budget after the last meeting and consider how you'd like it to be presented. It definitely doesn't have to be presented like this, and our dealer Karen in finance know that we might be changing this format to make it something that makes the most sense for you guys as a commission. The only
Okay.
thing you can't change is your budget amount.
I was going to say, can we just add a 0, or yeah, that's, I'm not. So I think this helps. I mean, I was a little confused by the youth focus. I was like, oh, what did I miss? But that would just be, because obviously those are combined. But I do like having the development expense in, because I remember the one time that I've been on the commission that we had somebody come in and give us some board training, and so it was very, very helpful to me. I'm an artist primarily, and this is kind of an ancillary thing that is, I'm a bit on a learning curve for this type of thing. And so for me, the training is really, really helpful. I think that when we see it in the budget, as opposed to having it being, an umbrella item, it reminds us every month, oh, that's right, we haven't found a good program from an American for the Arts. They have some really, really nice stuff that I'd love it if all of us could be comprehensively aware of the environmental impact study that they've put out through Americans for the Arts, because it is very, very compelling, very compelling. And it gives you, it just makes you feel stronger going out in the community as an artist and saying, art does matter, art does have economic impact in all of these just ways that you never think about. We all know that it's important because it's what makes us human beings, is what we do with art. But it's also important for other people who are business people to understand that it impacts their business environment as well. And Americans for the Arts has done an amazing study, so maybe we can look for that, the program that includes that, Hillary, training in that study.
There are actually 3 different options through Americans for the Arts. So one of them is that annual convention that they do, which is going to be in Denver this next year. The Speakers Bureau, which would be more of the format that you guys had before. You invited a speaker to come in and kind of do some development as a whole, and that could be either a couple hours, or it could be a half day, or it could be a full day training. Or they do regional workshops as well that you could consider. So if you'd like to look more into that and decide which one makes the most sense for the commission, that I could make that a agenda item next year that you could discuss. If you guys want to, I can send you the links for those so you could look at it and do some research.
Awesome. But I think having that in the budget, I'm fine with this budget the way it is. This to me, putting our our revenues for the events that we have, as well as the way we're utilizing our funding for marketing. I think this is more in focus to what we've been trying to accomplish. And adding the training helps for me, the development. Anyone? Is there anything that would make it clearer as far as breaking anything out further, or do you think it's understandable?
It's good.
Good? All right. Hillary, I think we're good with this, other than just get rid of the youth focus. Not that we're getting rid of the youth focus program, just the words.
Yeah,
Because they're combined.
I'll ask for that change. There will be a few other updates to your budget. There was, with our carry forward each year, that's carried forward in one lump sum. So you'll see at the bottom where it says public art projects, that right now it looks like we've spent more than our total budget, but we're expecting $5,000 from our MAPS funds we always allocate towards that traffic box program. And then that will come from that 49,150 at the bottom. So 5,000 of that will be pushed up towards traffic box wraps. I just forgot to make that request very clear. So that will be a change in the next budget as well. But other than that, these, if you're happy with it, these will be your numbers to go off of.
I like it. Thank you. Thank you for your work in that. So, there we go. Commission training, we talked about it. Additional funding anticipated, just,
That might be something for committees to
yeah,
discuss too.
that's what I'm thinking too. So let's go ahead and, we talked a little bit about that. We talked about the $5,000, so we've kind of covered that. We'll go ahead and take that up in committee. The Alexa Rose Foundation workshop. Hillary?
Sorry, I have so many talking points this time. I spoke with Karen Bubb, who actually works for the city of Boise in their Arts and History department, but she's also a board member on the Alexa Rose Foundation. So she reached out to me and said that every year they get quite a few applications from individual artists for the Alexa Rose grant, specifically though from the city of Boise, and that she really wants to see more applicants from the surrounding regional area, including Meridian, Kuna, Nampa, because the grant really is meant to have an impact on the entire Treasure Valley. So she asked if they could hold, if she or another board member could host an evening workshop for artists to kind of talk about what the grant is, what the criteria are, and help walk artists through the application process if they're interested. I reached out to Potter's Tea House to see if they might be interested in being a venue for this workshop, because I found that some artists don't love meeting in municipal buildings, and other artists are forced to meet in municipal buildings because it's the only option. But Potter's Tea House said they would be interested, and they asked about how many we expected to be in attendance, and said if we needed to, they could consider even closing down their shop if we're expecting a ton. I said I don't think we would need that. But they gave me some dates that could work for them, and I wanted to share those dates with you guys to see if one of you or two of you or as many of you as you want would be interested in attending that workshop, especially for those of you that are artists that might be interested in the grant, but also to represent MAC in general, to hopefully learn a little bit about the grant, and that way, as you're talking to other artists throughout the city, you could inform them of or give them more information about that grant than you already have. So the dates suggested were in early January. It's Tuesday the 2nd, Thursday the 4th, or Tuesday the 9th. And I suggested a time of 6 o'clock for that workshop, just because it allows people to get off work and get over to downtown Meridian. Are any of you interested in attending to begin with? Okay.
Bonnie, and I would think Ellen would have some interest in that.
Well, and
as
I
well.
think it's worth stating, Alexa Rose is actually all artists. It's visual and performing arts. It awards to all
It's like
artists.
I
But
didn't
it's for
know that.
individuals, right, and not groups.
Right.
So, if I'm in town, I'd be interested. I imagine we should add that to Ellen's email so that she can know about it. Yeah, I just have to look at my calendar and see what.
I send out a doodle poll and just pick the date that works best for
Awesome.
the majority
Yep,
of you.
that'd be great.
Again, if it gets to a point where there's 5 of you that can attend, I think that because it's not a meeting, it's not a MAC meeting, as long as you're not discussing MAC business, you could, as many of you could attend as are interested.
Okay.
Just MAC stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'll send out a doodle for that with that other follow-up email for you guys, and I'll also include that for those that are absent today. But I think it'd be a great opportunity, not only for, like Mary said, not only for visual artists, but for performing artists as well. And I'm sure Mary and Gretchen can help share that with some performers, so it'd be great.
And I'll share it with my network, and we can all share through our social media networks and see if we can get Potters. That's such a nice new space downtown. See if we can fill it up too. It'd be good for the artists and good for them. So, thank you, Hillary. We'll wait for that doodle poll. And reports, presentations, here we go with staff reports, liaison reports. I think we've heard from all the liaisons that had asked to be heard today. So let's move on to you, Hillary, once again with the monthly financial report.
Yeah, so this is your monthly financial report. I included also your current revenue is a whole whopping $35 from Dwight, from the old Water Boys, except
Yeah.
having a show in Initial Point Gallery. And more of those will come in, all those $35 funds. And your current, this looks really small. This is your current expenses. Most of these are actually things that were journal entry. They were expenses that were from last fiscal year that actually hit over here. So you'll see those negative amounts because they had to be applied to last year's budget. So the 139 and 139 from Facebook advertising for Art Week, 49 and 49, again, Art Week advertising, and then there's another 132.50 down here. So the majority of your expenses are really just traffic box expenses for installations that were completed after September. And then Treasure Value Theater, we issued them their first milestone, or their first payment.
All right. Thank you. Any questions on the monthly financial report? And if not, the liaison reports, like I said before, we have 3. Claudia, outreach and volunteer. Yes. About reflections.
So this is a nice, tidy box of Reflections is the Parent-Teacher Association art program that runs in some schools. So I want to say this is the 2nd or 3rd year I've judged. And this year I judged 2 categories, the early primary grades and the later primary grades. And I didn't count the total number of entries, but they were great. The theme was within reach, which is a great thing because it could have a lot of interpretations or meaning. And I'll just tell you about one that was kind of touched my heart. This little boy, and from what I could tell from the narrative that was written by his mother, maybe a special needs kid, not sure, but his picture was hands, all these hands, and he had drawn them separately, but then they were cut out and they were pasted into one, these little hands, and they had a heart on them. And the narrative told the story of every morning before he left, his mom would kiss his hand. And so during the day, if he ever had a challenging time, he would always look at his hand and think, she kissed me there this morning, and I know my mom is within reach. And it was just so, so sweet. And so many of them were. And so I think it's a good program, and I was happy to be able to judge those. Yeah, it was really touching. And there was one, I was like, another one of animals kind of stacked up so the top one could get a piece of fruit off of the tree. So sort of a literal, it's not within our reach, but if we work together, that piece of fruit is within our reach. And it was like a first grader. And it was so good. It was done in watercolor and everything. So I think it's an awesome program to get kids involved in creating art with sort of a broad, you know, they're not, you know, outside of maybe size, there aren't really any limitations. So they can be really creative with it. There were all sorts of mediums, all sorts of interpretations. So it was fun.
I love it. I love that program. It's just, thank you. Thanks for representing us there. I want to see that picture. Sounds like a wonderful traffic box.
Could be.
All right, Initial Point Gallery, Bonnie.
Well, I kind of talked a little bit about the gallery opening last, for this month, and the show for December will carry through into January. And it's the Gord Society has 3D work, and then a watercolorist fills the rest of the gallery. And it's really a lovely show, so if you haven't gone upstairs to see it, you should. The Gord work is absolutely incredible. Some of the things that they have done that are, it's just incredible. And the opening was, you know, there was music, and it was quite well attended. I think there was probably 40, 50 people that showed up for the event. And
Nice.
I don't know if
That's a pretty nice
if
group.
anybody sold anything or not, but anyway, it's a beautiful show, so if you haven't gone upstairs to look at it, do.
I haven't. I think I'll go up after. Check it out. So, great. Thank you, Bonnie. Performing art, we have Gretchen on this.
I actually have a report from her.
Okay, good.
Oh, and I can fill it. She asked me a long time ago, but if you want to do it.
Mary, Hillary, you guys want to share it?
Gretchen is currently at Tech for the best Christmas pageant ever. She's actually performing, one of the performers in the show, and they run one more weekend in Boise at the Boise Little Theater. So that's why she is not with us this evening. But she wanted me to give a rundown of the fact that this is the third and final weekend for the best Christmas pageant ever. We have had several commission members that have seen the show, either here, it started at Meridian Middle School, the first weekend in December, and then it traveled to Nampa to Awaken Church last weekend, and we'll finish this weekend at Boise Little Theater. And it's been a successful show, a successful run. It's the first time Treasure Valley Children's Theater has put adults and children on stage together. So there are members of the adult professional company as well as the youth company members on stage. And it's a lovely, lovely show. It's very sweet and very heartwarming, and it's been a great family experience for all ages. So we're excited to be able to sponsor that as the Arts Commission, and that it's been so successful this year. The other thing I get to tell you is, as of last night, 116 young people auditioned for Willy Wonka, which is the next production of Treasure Valley Children's Theater, and the next production that we're sponsoring as the Meridian Arts Commission. So the cast list is not complete, but 116 kids came out, and all of them were great talents. So it's going to be a hard job for them to choose just 35, but they'll get it done, and we will be on our way to pure imagination with Willy Wonka.
Oompa Loompa Land.
And Oompa Loompas. That will play the second weekend in March.
Nice, nice, nice. 116? That's fantastic. Congratulations. That's such an amazing outreach thing that we're part of, and I love that one of our commissioners is in the show.
With her son, yeah.
Yeah.
She does a
That is
great
cool.
job.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm going to try to go to that this weekend. Thank you. Thank you, Mary. All right. Taking it back to you, Hillary, with the admin report.
How short it is this month. So great. Public art project update. We've extended a master agreement and task order to Sector 17, and that is currently slated for the December 19th City Council agenda for their consideration. Heroes Park, it's still not installed yet. I think they've got their concrete footing done so that the cold's no longer an issue, but with Ken McCall being torn away from Heroes Park to work on Keith Bird Legacy Park, that was really a priority to get that done and completed before Keith Bird retired, and they already had a date set for that opening and ceremony as well. So that project's totally done. If you haven't seen Keith Bird Legacy Park, you need to go check it out. Stephanie Inman designed that piece, and it's awesome. Parks has done a really cool thing by using that art roster as much as they have. So that's something that I don't know, we don't hear about all the time because they can kind of do it independently now, and they're integrating the arts into their signage for new parks, and I think it's been really great.
Hillary,
Anyway.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that just sparked something for me. Is that the fact that we helped set up that arts roster, that happened this year, right? In
It was
2017?
actually finalized last year, but
Okay.
it's been implemented
It
and
may be-
used a lot.
It may be worth stating again to City Council in our year-end report, just because they're using it. And it's so exciting to be able to go into parks and say, we weren't necessarily a part of where that art came from, but it's well done, and they're using the guidelines that we gave them and helped them establish. So I think that's really
Yeah.
exciting, and that's what we want to do, right, as an Arts Commission. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I
Thank you.
think-
That's a really good point for the,
Yeah, I gave them a tool to use and refer to for, I think even for future park planning. They've been talking to those artists as consultants, so it's been great.
Cool.
All of this is to say that Ken McCall is getting images completed from Forge signs or something like that, and they're hoping to install before the end of the year. So, like I said, that was pushed back, but since it's going to be probably installed around like Christmas time, that's not the best time to bring people back out into the cold. So maybe we do like a ceremony in January after spring. I don't know. I just don't want to
Yeah,
do it around
I'm
Christmas.
like,
at all.
ah.
And the cold doesn't sound super fun, but it will be installed virtually, hopefully before I see you guys again next as a group. And then I just wanted to include a written report from that initial point gallery that will be up through the end of January.
all right. Anything else? Okay, great. Remember when I said that an hour and a half was about our longest meeting? We're edging up on it, so let's quickly. Our next meeting is the regular meeting on January 11th. Be thinking about the things we've talked about today with the committees. Watch for your doodle polls, watch for your emails. And let's talk right after this about when the best time to get some dates for the city council, when we present to city council to see if we can get a lot of us there. So we can adjourn, and then we'll talk about those dates. Is there a motion?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, Madam Chair, I know we're adjourned, but I just received an email from Councilman Kavanagh. So I just wanted to let you know that I had time to watch 30 minutes-ish of the MAC meeting today. Just amazing at the talent we have on the commission. I wanted to pass along my thanks to the members for serving. So,
Nice, thank you.
nice job.